Hello world! Welcome to this year's Pop Quiz for Teachers. I am your host, Angela Rain M. Danyoso. This quiz has three categories. The first one is the general education, second is the professional education, and the last is the majorship. The mechanics of this game is to enjoy and learn. Let us start with the general education. Question number 1. Which among the following countries does not have a significant contribution to the Filipino bloodline? The correct answer for this is letter B, Japanese. Compared to the other three choices, Japanese is the least commonly encountered nationality here in the Philippines. Unlike the Chinese, we all know that there are a lot of Chinese communities here in our Philippines. Question number 2. Which of the following gives the prime factorization of 54? The correct answer is letter B. It is because 3 cubed is equal to 27 multiplied by 2, then we have the answer 54. Question 3. Tax imposed on all employed and practicing professionals. The correct answer for this is letter A, income tax. Income tax is a type of tax that governments impose on income generated by businesses and individuals within their jurisdiction. Income tax is used to fund public services, pay government obligations, and provide goods for citizens. Question number 4. Filipino writer whose stories and poems depict Filipino-Spanish cultural beliefs and traditions. The correct answer for number 4 is letter D, Nick Joaquin. Nicomedes Nick Marquez Joaquin was a Filipino writer and journalist best known for his short stories and novels in the English language. Joaquin was widely considered one of the most distinguished Filipino writers in English. He wrote largely about the Spanish colonial period, the diverse Filipino heritage, and the dimensions of the human psyche. He was named National Artist for Literature in 1976. Question number 5. Maternity leaves are extended to women. What legal provision extends this? The correct answer is letter B, Article 13, Section 14, Women. The Section 14 of Article 13 states that the state shall protect working women by providing safe and healthful working conditions, take into account their maternal functions and such facilities and opportunities that will enhance their welfare and enable them to realize their full potential in the service of the nation. Question number 6. What is one of the man-made wonders of the Philippines? Letter A, rice terraces. Letter B, Mount Makiling. Letter C, Manila Bay. Letter D, Taal Volcano. The right answer for question number 6 is letter A, rice terraces. The Banawe rice terraces, or in Filipino, the Hagdan-Hagdang Palaya ng Banawe, are terraces that were carved into the mountains of Banawe, Ifugao in the Philippines by the ancestors of the Igorot people. The terraces are occasionally called the eighth wonder of the world. It is commonly thought that the terraces were built with minimal equipment, largely by hand. The terraces are located approximately 1,500 meters or 4,900 feet above sea level. These are fed by an ancient irrigation system from the rainforests above the terraces. It is said that if the steps were put in end to end, it would encircle half of the globe. Locals up to this day still plant rice and vegetables on the terraces, although more and more younger Ifugaos do not find farming appealing, often opting for the more lucrative hospitality industry generated by the terraces. The result is a gradual erosion of the characteristic steps, which require constant reconstruction and care. In 2010, a further problem encountered was drought, with the terraces drying up completely in March of that year. Question number 7. Who was the Spanish mestizo priest who first led the native secular clergy in the secularization movement in 1861? The choices are letter A, Father Jacinto Zamora, letter B, Father Pedro Pilaes, letter C, Father Gregorio Aglipay, and letter D, Father Jose Burgos. The correct answer for this is letter B, Father Pedro Pilaes. Pedro Pilaes y Sebastian was a Filipino Catholic priest who favored the rights for Filipino clergy during the 19th century. In the early 19th century, Pilaes advocated for the secularization of Filipino priests and is considered the godfather of the Philippine Revolution. His cause towards beatification has been initiated. He has the title Servant of God. Question number 8. Analects, which are short and witty sayings that treat of moral values and good human relation, are attributed to letter A, Mao Zedong, letter B, Mencius, letter C, Confucius, letter D, Lao Tzu. The correct answer for number 8 is letter D, Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu, also rendered as Lao Tzu or Lao Tse, was an ancient Chinese philosopher and writer. He is the reputed author of the Tao Te Ching, the founder of philosophical Taoism and a deity in religious Taoism and traditional Chinese religions. Lao Tzu's philosophy advocates naturalness, spontaneity, and freedom from social conventions and desires. In the Tao, which means the way, Lao Tzu refers to the ultimate order of things and ultimate basis of reality. Legend has it that the two masters Confucius and Lao Tzu meet more than once, Lao Tzu being somewhat senior to Confucius. In a probable apocryphal chapter of the later, the Book of Taoist Master Zhuang, their encounters are described with a mischievously mocking Taoist sense of humor. Question number 9. This demonstrated the feeding connections between all life forms. Choices are letter A, nutrition cycles, letter B, fossil cycle, letter C, biochemical pathways, and letter D, food web. The correct answer for this is letter A, nutrition cycle. A nutrient cycle or nutrition cycle is defined as the cyclic pathway by which nutrients pass through in order to be recycled and reutilized. The pathway comprises cells, organisms, community, and ecosystem. In the process, nutrients get absorbed, transferred, released, and reabsorbed. It is a natural recycling system of mineral nutrients. Nutrients consumed by plants and animals are returned to the environment after death and decomposition, and the cycle continues. Nutrient recycling involves both biotic and abiotic components. The main abiotic components are air, water, and soil. Recycling of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen occurs in water, air, and soil, whereas calcium, phosphorus, potassium, and etc. are recycled mainly in soil and are available locally. So the four main nutrient cycles are the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the oxygen cycle, and the water cycle. Let us talk first with the carbon cycle. Carbon is the main constituent of all the living cells. All the organic matter and biomolecules contain carbon. So carbon is present mainly as a carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere. There is a continuous exchange of carbon between biotic and abiotic components by the process of photosynthesis and respiration. Atmospheric carbon dioxide is fixed by plants in the process of photosynthesis. All the living organisms release carbon dioxide during respiration. Carbon is released into the atmosphere by burning of fossil fuels and auto emissions. And lastly, organic carbon from dead and decaying organisms and waste products is released into the atmosphere after decomposition. The nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen is also an essential component of life. nitrogen cannot be directly utilized by living organisms and has to be converted to other forms. So by the process of nitrogen fixation, nitrogen-fixing bacteria fix atmospheric nitrogen to ammonia, and nitrifying bacteria convert ammonia to nitrate. It is then taken up by plants. Atmospheric nitrogen is converted to nitrates directly by lightning and assimilated by plants. Decomposers break down proteins and amino acids of dead and decaying organic matters and waste product, and nitrifying bacteria convert ammonia and nitrates to nitrogen and nitrous oxide by the process of denitrification. In this way, nitrogen is released back into the atmosphere. The third example of the nutrition cycle is the oxygen cycle. Oxygen is essential for life. Aquatic organisms are dependent on oxygen dissolved in water. Oxygen is required for the composition of biodegradable waste products. So photosynthesis is the main source of oxygen present in the atmosphere. Atmospheric oxygen is taken up by living organisms in the process of respiration and release carbon dioxide, which is used for photosynthesis by plants. And the last example is the hydrologic or water cycle. Water is an essential element for life to exist on Earth. Water from oceans, lakes, rivers, and other reservoirs is continuously converted to vapor by the process of evaporation and transpiration from the surface of plants. Water vapors get condensed and returned by precipitation, and the cycle continues. The water falling on the ground is absorbed and stored as groundwater. The importance of nutrient cycle is that all living organisms, biomolecules, and cells are made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus. These elements are essential for life. It is important to recycle and continuously replenish nutrients into the environment for life to exist. Last question, question number 10. The acronym HTML means Hypertext Markup Blank. The choices are letter A, line, letter B, language, letter C, letter D, label. The correct answer for this is letter B, language. So what is HTML? HTML is the language for describing the structure of web pages. HTML gives authors the means to publish online documents with headings, text, tables, lists, photos, and etc., retrieve online information via hypertext links at the click of a button, design forms for conducting transactions with remote services for use in searching for information, making reservations, and ordering products, and lastly includes spreadsheets, video clips, sound clips, and other applications directly in their documents. With HTML, authors describe the structure of pages using markup. The elements of the language label pieces of content such as paragraph, list, table, and so on. So that sums up for today's episode of Pop Quiz for Teachers. I hope you had fun